Show. We clash momentarily for class solidarity. Cash circulating, give the masses back its currency. Greed from a leech, oligarchs stay fed. Deep state, faith fed, everybody break bread. Racism, homophobia, sexism, religion in this melting pot we live in. Time to build a new system, unionize labor rights. Highlight the issue, talking heads left is best. The saga continues. The No Me Key Show.
Hello and welcome to the No Me Key Show. It is Wednesday, January 19th, and this is Solidarity Wednesdays. We kicked off Solidarity Wednesdays in this new year of 2022. Ooh, 2022, so new. Same fights, just escalating. But that is why we started Solidarity Wednesdays. I think if there's anything that the left may be known for, it's that in times of revolutions and growth and instability simultaneously, the left can sometimes, there's a cliche that it eats itself alive. I don't buy into that. I truly don't. I think that if there are folks who have a stake in pitting folks on the left against each other, some folks who may not understand the tactics will fall for it. And that's not their fault. You know, movements grow by bringing in new people. And the newer you are to a movement, there may be less likely chance that you know the tactics that are used against you. The same thing with unions. We've been talking a lot about unions, about how there's all this mobilizing happening on the ground. And now that there's coverage, other folks who are unionizing and organizing and striking are learning from other organizers who are striking and unionizing. They're learning the tactics of opposition. But as a movement, as a whole, we need to learn as much as possible because the stakes are obviously incredibly high right now, whether it's this recession that we're in still, this COVID recession, the pandemic, and of course, climate change, housing instability, job safety, and of course, the rise of the far, far right, which works in solidarity. So our show is going to be dedicated to helping you understand what is happening on the right, what is happening, obviously, with neoliberals, and the tactics that they're using to divide us so that we don't fall for it. It's human nature, especially if we're frustrated and we go through a lot of losses and we're angry and sad and we want to take it out on whoever. This is how we work as humans. Donald Trump preyed on it. He tapped into people's frustrations about this country that we're living in and the economic anxieties. And he said, look over there, it's the Mexicans. You know, some of this is very right, have done it with the neoliberals who've held up a party that co-opted a party, I should say, that used to be for workers. But at this moment, the stakes are really, really high. We cannot afford to be fighting with each other over things that really don't make up the big picture. They're not going to make a difference in the long run. They might make a difference in the immediate, and they might be significant, but are they priorities? And sometimes the fights are just not really actually fights. It's just personalities flailing around. So it's almost like it's a meditative practice. This is why Dr. King, and of course we're coming to you after MLK Day, which was a couple of days ago. This is why Dr. King was also so powerful, is that his speeches were sermons. And his sermons not only connected the movement with the feelings of despair that we were facing, that the country was facing, not just African Americans, but of course, people, allies who joined in with that fight. Because as he said, and when he crossed the bridge, I'm Greek Orthodox, he held arms with the Archbishop of the Greek Orthodox Church. And that's because he knew that he needed allies who were in the same fight. Allyship, solidarity was going to bring in the wins. Whether it was the labor movement showing up for the March on Washington in conjunction with the movement that showed up in Washington to listen to MLK. But what he did so brilliantly was he reminded us what it's all about. When you go to church, if you're a person of faith, or if you've ever seen anybody give a speech in a church, and it's moved you for whatever reason. And even some of the best political speeches, there are hints of faith that tap into the humanity, to tap into why we are doing what we're doing. They don't sit there and say, Donald Trump was not taking people to church. He was venting, and he was pointing out targets for people to channel their energy at the folks that were not the enemies. What MLK was doing in opposition, and what truly great movement leaders do, is they remind you what it's all about, the greater purpose, why you as an individual are so important in the larger movement, and why we have to focus on how we can work together with people who are actually our allies. That's important. Doesn't mean you work together with the right wing. You work together with your actual allies who are going to bring your goal to fruition. Liberation. That's what it's all about, right? It's about our liberation as humans so that we can live the healthiest, freest lives we can. But we got to do that together. So Solidarity Wednesdays, we talk about some fun stuff too. We have to talk about the fun stuff. But at the same time, we talk about how that works into the movement. It's not enough to just make fun of idiots on the internet saying ridiculous things. How does that relate to what we're doing? Does it mean that we have to let other folks know in our community that might be prone to buying into what a Joe Rogan says, what his tactics are? Maybe that's it. Maybe it's steering folks back over to our movement and reminding them what really matters right now. What really, really, really matters. These cultural fights that the right wing always stirs up in these moments of change are there to bait us. The fake CRT debate. You mean history? We've always taught history. This is after the right wing has literally ripped to shreds public education funding. Of course, they're going to go after that next. And as our dear friends, the Majority Report said on Tuesday, they said the next thing you're going to do in a decade, what caller called in and said this, is they're going to try to get rid of MLK Day, because that's how they do it. They create little fights along the way to distract from the big fights. You got to do it both at the same time, right? Sometimes you have no choice, but we have to focus on the prize, keep our eyes on the prize. And right now, there are fights on Capitol Hill over the filibuster and voting rights, things that we won a long time ago, just like we won at Roe v. Wade. And yet here we are again, fighting over Roe v. Wade. This is how they work. So Solidarity Wednesdays, we're going to be focusing on how to keep this movement as strong as possible and grow it. We have Ben Dixon on today. Very excited because he's here for Solidarity Wednesdays. Ben Dixon is, of course, the host of the Benjamin Dixon Show. I show up on his show in the morning. Go check that out on YouTube at 8 a.m. I show up. And then later we have David Dayen from the American Prospect, of course. And Julia Doubleday is going to be joining us for our panel, as well as Napoleon DeLegend. But first, I want to do my little reminder. Speaking of solidarity, you guys know about Matriarch. Matriarch is an organization that supports working class women running for office. Matriarch is hosting a free, free online campaign training. If you are thinking of running for office as a working woman, if you are running for office as a working woman, or if you are in office as a working woman and want to learn more tactics, you might be running again for a different office. And if you have staff on your team that is interested in these tactics as well, because it will hit home for staff as well, senior staff, we urge you to sign up for the Matriarch training. It's on Saturday, January 29th. We'll send you more details, but go sign up, get as many people as possible. We have extraordinary folks who are going to be speaking. We're going to be teaching you everything about how to fight off smears. That's a big one. What's the playbook when they go after women, specifically working women? What is the playbook, and how do you protect yourself, and how do you make sure you don't fall for some of their tactics, as we were just discussing? To compliance. I know that sounds boring, but that is a tool the right wing uses against folks to essentially, get them tied up in lawsuits, have to pay for legal fees, and many times they're bogus, or they try to catch them on a small little thing to distract you from your campaign. This is the type of training we're talking about, as well as class issues, how to raise money when you're not a millionaire or billionaire or don't know millionaires and billionaires. This is a free training. We urge you to sign up. Working woman. This is Matriarch is all about supporting working women up and down the ballot. You're running for Congress all the way down to school board, because let's not forget the right wing QAnon supporters and the Proud Boys have announced that they're running for school boards and city councils around the country. So why don't you step up? This is your time. If you can do it, if you're thinking about doing it, we'll help you understand what it takes to run for school board or to run for Congress. There are realities, and folks should know that before they get into the race. So sign up for the January 29th training. It is all day. And if you're thinking about getting endorsed, I urge you to do this training as well, because it's a big part of our program. All right, we will be right back with David Dayen. Welcome back to TNS, the Nomi Key Show. David Dayen is the executive editor of The American Prospect. He has two pieces out, recent pieces in the new year. One that I think speaks to many of us right now, that Democratic inaction will lead us back to austerity. And the other is, this one's interesting. There is a bully pulpit. And this, of course, is in response to the Supreme Court decisions when it comes to vaccinations. So, David, let's start off with austerity. We're already in a recession. Like, haven't we learned that this is not how we get out of economic collapse, through austerity? Like, if we look to Greece or Argentina or many places around the world, Puerto Rico?
Well, the issue is that obviously we've seen inaction in Congress for the last 6 to 8 months. At the beginning of the Biden administration, there was this belief that he had learned the lessons of the Obama recovery, that they were not going to go too small. They passed the American Rescue Plan. They were going to have a robust fiscal policy in order to bring us back from the ravages of the pandemic. And certainly the American Rescue Plan did that to a greater degree than the Obama stimulus. However, those things dissipate. They were temporary. And what we really needed coming out of the pandemic was sustained public investment. Our public investment is at levels that, and even in the Obama era, it was at levels about as low as the Eisenhower administration. We just don't do a lot of public investment.
Well, can you let's pause for a second.
Sure.
Explain what was going on with the Eisenhower administration. Like, this is coming out of a decade of a lot of investment. Eisenhower pumped the brakes.
Well, I mean, Eisenhower did the road program, but we just had a less robust public sector at that point, is what you really should say. And so, you know, the story of public investment was a story of increases through the Great Society and the programs that were sustained, hard to be killed even by the Nixon Reagan era. And then they were expanded more and more as we went on. But they were truncated. They were cut back, particularly when Obama made the pivot to austerity after the Great Recession. And so we went back down to that very low level. What we're seeing now is because really nothing has been done other than the infrastructure bill, which is really a minor increase in the routine infrastructure spending that we do every year.
Right.
If you look at, there are a lot of reports that are put out on fiscal policy and what it does to contribute to economic growth. And in the Obama administration, we saw that after about the middle of 2010, that started to go negative. In other words, what fiscal policy was doing was taking away from economic growth. If you look at the same picture today, fiscal policy is now taking away from economic growth. In this quarter, it's actually one quarter earlier than under the Obama administration. So despite all of those headwinds, despite the American Rescue Plan, we are now in a position where fiscal policy is taking away from growth. And because of that, we're especially if we don't maintain this very robust consumer spending that we're seeing, any kind of downturn, we're not going to be able to use, we won't have the government policy in place to counteract that. So what have we seen recently? The child tax credit enhancement, that went away. That went away at the end of December. In May, the student loan payment pause is scheduled to go away. It was scheduled to go away at the end of this month, but it was extended until May. But in May, it will go away. So you have these things they are taking away from growth. They are adding, they're reducing benefits for individuals. In the case of student loans, they're adding costs, about $393 a month to every student borrower, which is about 45 million people.
It's insane.
And so, if there ends up being a downturn, an economic problem, we do not have the robust fiscal policy in place to counteract that, which means we're going to be, moving back into a position of austerity. So yes, it's a real concern.
And when you say austerity, where are we looking?
I'm not sure what you mean by where.
Well, I mean, obviously austerity, the large programs, but where are we going to be cutting back in our government? What is obviously making folks, student loans that's an ongoing program, but is that necessarily austerity? That's not austerity.
Well, it is in a sense, because for 2 years we have had no payments on student loans. No American who has a federal loan has paid in the last 2 years, nor have they had any interest accrue in the last 2 years. Right. So if that comes back, that has the effect of austerity, right? Because you're suddenly creating costs for individuals that weren't there before. And so that does exact a price, right? And the same thing with eliminating the enhanced child tax credit. I mean, child tax credit was $2,000 at a baseline. It went up to $3,000 for children over the age of 6 and $3,600 for children under the age of 6. So that $1,000 to $1,600 a year, which was being given out monthly. I mean, there's two things going on here. One, you're just reducing the cost, right? From 36 to 2,000. So there's a smaller benefit that people are getting. The second thing is that since July, that's been given out in monthly increments as a check that has gone into people's bank accounts. So that's not happening anymore. So they won't actually get the benefit of the child tax credit until next year, until next April. So whereas you were getting $250 or $300 a month per child, now you're not getting that. You're not getting that. You're getting $0. So that's a net reduction in your income, essentially your net income, including transfer payments. So you're not getting that anymore. So suddenly you have less money to spend on various things. So these things play together. If you have less money to spend, you have less purchasing power, particularly if you're low income. You're going to cut back your spending. And if you cut back your spending, then we're going to see that in the consumer spending statistics. And all those people, all these businesses that were hanging on because there was high demand for their services, for their goods, suddenly that demand has shrunk. The other problem that this gets a little bit wonky, but basically we've had these supply chain issues, right? It's hard to get stuff that has been produced into your store. So what a lot of businesses have been doing is they've been double ordering. They're like, we're not going to get everything. We might get some things. Let's double order to make sure we get something. And so we'll have something on sale. Well, if the downturn comes and suddenly there isn't the same level of demand that there was before, you've double ordered. Now you have a bunch of inventory that you can't sell. And it will magnify any kind of impact. You could see businesses fail. It will magnify the impact of any downturn. So there's a lot of volatility going on right now within the economy. And a lot of it is because we have failed to keep up with the various investments that we were supposed to make in the Build Back Better Act. This is creating dangerous territory.
I do want to go to supply chain in a second, but going back to austerity for a minute, are there other programs that existed and didn't move, whether it's SNAP or I'm just trying to think of programs that are on the cutting block. Like if Republicans were in charge, we know that they would just forget about subsidizing anything during the pandemic. They would or pumping the economy a little bit during the pandemic. They would be slicing and dicing true austerity. Is there anything that you see on the table?
Well, there's a couple things to talk about. I mean, this time last year, everybody was getting an enhanced $300 a month in their unemployment benefits. That hasn't happened. That was cut off last September. The Build Back Better Act was supposed to be a cost reducer, right? I mean, it was supposed to reduce the cost of prescription drugs, reduce the cost of at-home elder care, reduce the cost of childcare, reduce the cost of pre-kindergarten. That was all supposed to be free or heavily subsidized. When none of that happens, suddenly, the families are faced with the same costs that they have now, which are very exorbitant, and they struggle to keep those together. So, it's the opportunity cost, right? It's the fact of not doing Build Back Better. The other thing is that we have been floating along without a Biden budget for his entire presidency. We have done continuing resolutions to fund the government, and the next one runs out February 18th. Now, I don't expect there's going to be a government shutdown, but when you do continuing resolutions to fund the government, you're not adding anything. You're not shaping the budget. You're essentially using a Trump framework for the budget because it's what was put in place under the previous regime. You're just continuing the level of spending, the baseline levels that were there before. And so that creates, there's austerity, but there's also opportunity costs. There's the fact that you're not going beyond the baselines, that you're not increasing with the increased cost of living. There are some cost of living increases built in, things like Social Security, which those payments went up 5.9% at the end of last year. But if you're talking about overall government spending, that has sort of floated along on the same baseline. And so that is another issue.
Who are the industries that are lobbying against? I mean, I live in New York City, and New York City, obviously New York City is a majority Democratic city council. I think there's one Republican. Democratic mayors, except for, our former Republican current mayor. With that being said, it's not like this is a town where vast progress happens. I mean, the real estate industry, NYPD, of course, are very powerful, but we have, 3K programs here. We have paid family leave. We have a lot of programs that are fairly progressive that should have been on the table in a Biden administration. So I'm curious, who are the forces that are lobbying Biden and the Democrats essentially and getting away with it that don't do it here in New York?
Right. I mean, well, certainly. And by the way, New York's not totally immune to this, right? University of New York has seen major budget cuts. We have a piece coming out about that just tomorrow, actually. But what I would say is that the big story about the economy right now is inflation. That's what everyone's talking about, right? We have this major inflation, and there are two kind of approaches to that. What are you going to do in response? And one of the approaches is that elite economists, people like Larry Summers and Jason Furman are talking about is we spent too much money. We spent too much money in the American Rescue Plan. And we need to cut back. And we do this in two ways. Number one, we don't spend any more money. And number two, we use the Federal Reserve to raise interest rates. And the effect of that is to throw people out of work. I mean, that's almost the stated goal of something like that. We want to reduce demand because that will reduce inflation. And the way to reduce demand is to make people poorer. Right?
Do people take this seriously still? I mean, I know he gets published, but
it's
how'd that work out in 2008? No, I know. But every time I read these pieces, it's like...
It's not that it's not being taken seriously. I mean, the Federal Reserve is talking very directly that they are going to raise interest rates, and they're going to raise interest rates as soon as January and certainly by March. And every time you raise interest rates, you make it harder for people to access credit. You make it harder on businesses to maintain their operations, and you lead to layoffs. I mean, that's almost like definitively what you do. And so that's one approach to dealing with the inflation. The other approach is to actually regulate the companies that are causing a lot of the inflation out there. And that's like the shipping companies that have seen profits that we've never seen before. This year, 2021, last year's profits in the ocean shipping industry, which is just the large container ships that go from China to here. Yeah. That year's profits in 2021 were equal to the profits of 2010 to 2020 combined. That's how much they made in 2021.
Okay, so is this so I'm curious, and this obviously leads to our supply chain issues too. Is this because of the increased demand under the lockdowns and pandemic and people, ordering stuff online, or
it's in
is
part
it something else?
It's in part because of the increased demand, but it's also in part because of the way that we set up our supply chains. So we have the majority of our goods coming from halfway around the world that we have to bring here on boats. We have we have completely deregulated ocean shipping. So we have three what they call alliances that control about 80 to 90% of all shipping. And they have ultimate pricing power. If you want to get your stuff onto a ship, you have to go through one of these three alliances. There's a bunch of companies, but they all work in concert with each other, and they're coordinating with each other to raise prices. The cost of getting a 40-foot container on a ship from China to the West Coast was $2,000 in 2020. By August of 2021, it was $20,000. They raised the prices tenfold. I mean, that's where it's coming from. That's where the prices are coming from. Then the log jams that we're seeing at the ports are also due to the fact that these ships get bigger and bigger because it makes economic sense for these large shipping companies to make bigger and bigger ships. That way, you're only going across once. Well, there are only certain ports that can handle ships of that size. And so you have a log jam at those particular ports. With respect to trucking, trucking is a completely crappy job. You wait in lines and you don't get paid until you get the load onto your truck. So you wait hours unpaid while you're waiting to get the truck put on, or the container put onto your chassis. And people don't want to do it. It's just, there's no money in it for truckers. They say there's a trucker shortage, but what there actually is a shortage of good jobs. And so all of these things raise prices. They raise
and then the
cost
trains
of moving things across.
You saw what happened. I mean, it's not necessarily directly related, but there was in California, there was that they're stealing things off of the trains now.
That's a common problem, but it is directly related because we used to have 40 Class 1 train companies in America. Now we have 7.
Oh, interesting.
And really we have 4, and 2 handle the West Coast and 2 handle the East Coast. So it's really 2 duopolies, and they have cut it during this whole supply chain crisis. Rail companies have been laying off workers. They have been cutting because cutting labor costs looks good to investors on Wall Street. And they take their cues from investors on Wall Street. So the reason that there's like mass crime on these rail cars, there's nobody's watching. There's it's like an absentee situation. There are no workers.
And then simultaneously, this is the same Wall Street that the other companies that I'm going to guess are depending on these goods or selling these goods. They want them to soar. So is there like a disconnect on Wall Street? Do they have conversations with each other? I mean, I hate to be so basic, but I'm like, we have team meetings and we go, if you do this, that could affect this. And this could affect that.
The larger problem is that we have run our commerce on the basis of a handful of philosophies. One is globalization, outsourcing to the lowest labor that we can possibly find, lowest cost labor. We've done this thing called just-in-time logistics, where we don't have any inventory, we don't have anything in a warehouse that as reserve capacity in case something goes wrong. We get the thing from the boat in China, we get it right to the store, and you buy it. And we only get as much as we think we're going to be able to sell. That's another philosophy. Monopolization is another philosophy. It's more efficient if there's just a few companies rather than a bunch of companies.
Right.
Deregulation, another philosophy. Let's deregulate the trucking industry. Let's deregulate the rail industry. Both of those were done in the Carter administration. Let's deregulate ocean shipping. That was done in the Clinton administration. And then financialization. Wall Street rules all. Shareholder value is the most important thing. And we're going to run these businesses on the basis of how many returns we can get for the shareholders. Those philosophies broke the supply chain. That's the reason that we have shortages, and that's the reason that we have this inflation. And until we get a handle on that and actually reverse those philosophies, we're going to continue to see it. Because what we did is we introduced this risk. This was working fine until it wasn't, right? And as soon as there's a problem, whether it's the pandemic or whether it's a fire at a factory in Japan that reduced a lot of our semiconductor production, or whether it's just bad weather that shuts down a port or shuts down a road that a truck can't get down, all of a sudden that magnifies because there's only one, right? We are on this knife edge with this.
Or the Suez Canal ship, remember that one?
The Suez Canal ship. I mean, there's any of a dozen things that can cause a disruption. And a disruption magnifies all around the world because of the way we engineered our supply chain.
I'll give you an example. Our audience knows I've been doing a documentary in Puerto Rico on disaster capitalism for 4 years. And today, now, there's two industries in which one, not so much of an effect financially, just in terms of quality. The coffee industry in Puerto Rico, they have some of the best coffee in the world. And I noticed, I think last year was like, it doesn't taste the same. I'm not sure what's going on. And one of my friends, who's a very well-known lawyer there, said to me, it's because when the hurricane came, it wiped out the crops. And so you're actually tasting now post-hurricane coffee as opposed to pre-hurricane coffee, because it's always, a few years behind. And then the second, which has very serious consequences, is Puerto Rico is the pharmaceutical capital of the world. And my mother, just a personal, she said to me the other day, she goes, I can't get my thyroid medicine and I have to take it now. Once they put you on it, you're like stuck for life. And I said, well, what happened? She goes, they can't, in the thyroid medicine, they get it from a pig's, like something in pigs. Yeah. And all of the pigs on the island were killed during the hurricane. So there's a backflow. I mean,
I'll give you another one. And I actually wrote about it.
This could be a game, by the way. We could just do this every week and talk about what else is being disrupted.
I wrote about this in my book, Monopolized. Hurricane Maria knocked out a lot of production at factories in Puerto Rico. One of the factories run by Baxter International produces about half of the nation's IV bags. And so what is an IV bag? It's salt and water in a bag, in a sterilized plastic bag. And what this did in 2017 is it created a ripple effect all around the country at hospitals where they just didn't have IV bags. And I tell this story in my book of a couple, the woman is getting cancer treatment, and they're having to do it manually, like through a syringe. She's having to get, and it has to be very precise the way it goes in. So this nurse is giving a very precise treatment. And her husband says, well, why are you doing this? So don't you usually do an IV? And it's like, oh yeah, we're out of IVs because of Puerto Rico, because of the hurricane. And he's sitting in La Jolla in a hospital with a bank of windows looking over the Pacific Ocean, hearing that they're out of salt and water in a bag. He's looking at a sea of salt and water and being told they can't find any salt and water. So this is the absurdity.
I think this is a don't look up moment. A don't look up moment.
Completely. This is the absurdity that's built into our supply chains and built into our commerce. And I'll give you one other thing that is driving a lot of this, and that is corporate greed. So, and you don't have to look very hard to find this. Companies are at a 70-year high of corporate profits, even though they're supposed to have all these increased inputs because of, added shipping costs, added supply chain costs. If you go and listen to earnings calls from companies like Procter & Gamble or Unilever or just Kroger, any groceries chain, any product manufacturer, they'll say, "Oh yeah, well we have a lot of pricing power right now, and we're using this as a good opportunity to raise prices." So yes, there is inflation, and that's inflation is being caused by various factors, including what we've talked about. But companies, pricing is a choice, and companies are making the choice to use the headlines around inflation as an excuse to raise prices more, directly going into their profits.
Before you wrap, I know you touched on this in one of your articles. Can you tell us about the meat industry and how that's affecting food prices right now?
Yes, meat is actually one of the largest drivers of inflation increases until the last month, and we'll talk about that at the end here. But it was one of the largest drivers. Beef, pork, chicken. These are also very concentrated industries. Meat processors control I think it's 4 meat processors that control between 60 and 85% of the meat industry in those various different goods, whether it's poultry or beef or pork. And what we've seen over the last year is that they are buying cattle and hogs and chicks at very low prices, but they are selling the finished product. They're like a middleman, right? They process the meat in the slaughterhouses, whatever. And they're selling it to grocery stores at very high prices, and they're pocketing the difference. And
there's no regulation of this. This seems like it's.
Well, the White House has been talking about this a lot, right? And there's supposed to be a set of laws under the Packers and Stockyards Act of 1921, which I know you know by heart, that are supposed to guard against this anti-competitive behavior. Because basically you have a monopoly in the middle, sitting in the middle, price gouging. Yeah. And the administration has been talking about this a lot. Whether it's the National Economic Council or Biden himself, and they're talking about new rules that they're putting in place. Well, lo and behold, in December, meat prices went down. And the only real answer to why meat prices went down, because a lot of these programs that the administration is talking about, they haven't been put in place yet. It's because they're talking about it. It's a signal to these companies that, regulation is coming. So you better kind of lay low for a little while and not take out these massive profits because it's reputationally very bad for you. Wow. And what that shows is that governments are not powerless in the face of all of these things that we're talking about. They have the ability to use executive power, even if it's the bully pulpit, even if it's just talking about the increasing prices, or use regulation that they have the authority to do through through the USDA, for example, the Department of Agriculture. They can do this, and it can have a material effect and have an immediate effect.
And the meat prices are affecting the rest of the food industry too. It's not just meat; it's affecting the cost of other like whatever.
Well, meat sometimes is an input into
vegetables.
Goods. Yeah, I mean, meat is an input into other goods, of course, exactly. And you have dairy prices going up as well because it's the same basic structure. But if you look at your overall grocery bill, the prices that are really going up are beef, they are chicken, they are pork. And now maybe, considering the environmental impact of all of those, maybe that's a good thing, right?
I know. I'm like,
maybe they should be going up, and maybe we should be eating less meat.
But
the larger point is the reason why those prices are going up. And it's because you have a middleman that is taking profits. And that can be true in a whole host of industries. It doesn't have to be just meat.
And I love that you ended with a bully pulpit, because this is, I think, the big question on everybody's mind right now. And we hope to have you on again soon, because I don't think this is going to go away anytime soon. But the power of the administration to signal that we're going to crack down, we're going to investigate, AKA, we're going to investigate you, Manchin, or you can't get, I mean, they have power, whether they actually have real power in the Senate. Senator
They
Schumer.
do have power. And there are a lot of examples. So, I'll give you an example. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau made an announcement, I believe in December, that they were going to go after big banks that were making a lot of money off overdraft fees.
Right.
Like, where you overdraw your account and all of a sudden they hit you with a $35 fee, things like that. They signaled very strongly, like, we're not going to tolerate that. We're going to investigate you. Since they said that, Bank of America has changed their policies, went down from $35 to $10. JP Morgan Chase. And these are companies that they the CFPB explicitly mentioned. JP Morgan Chase changed their policies, made it harder to draw an overdraft fee. Wells Fargo did the exact same thing. So, these things are signals. When regulators say we're going to regulate you, usually corporations get that message. And they change their policies, and it's important to know that, and for these agencies to realize that power.
Student loans. I'm going to say a little bit. I mean, but also this is how you win an election. I mean, we're going into in 2 moves. Joe Biden, he could potentially hold the Senate. I don't know about the House at this point, but he could really, exercise his bully pulpit power.
Well, look, sense. I mean, about a month and a half ago, Jen Psaki got up at her press conference and she said, what do you want us to do? Give everybody COVID tests in the mail? Like, how can we possibly do that? Yesterday, they started a website that do exactly that. And the website was great. I put in my address and I was done. Like, what other government program is that easy, right? And presuming they all show up in 7 to 12 days, which is what they
fair
said.
enough.
But presuming that happens, I mean, that's exactly what they should be doing. And whether it's cancellation of student debt, which you referred to, or changing the Controlled Substances Act to make marijuana effectively legal, or using the power of the Health and Human Services Agency to lower prescription drug prices, which they absolutely have the ability to do. Or doing all these things that we were talking about, and also making sure everybody knows, like, if your overdraft fee just went down from $35 to $10, do you thank Bank of America for that? Or do you thank the CFPB who said, we're going to go after your ass if you do that?
That's right.
You have to not only make it visible to people and make tangible benefits to people, but you have to let them know why it happened.
Exactly. Carry the win. It's about, being creative with our government. I think we get stuck in these, they're not doldrums, but these cycles of it's this person's fault, which problematic, yes, but of course there's other avenues as well. So, David, I'd love to have you on, because maybe we can have these creative sessions and get people to think outside the box, that changing society can happen through other means. So,
always happy to be on. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, David. Take care. All right, we'll be right back. It's Solidarity Wednesdays, and we're going to be back with the one, the only Benjamin Dixon. Welcome back. It is Solidarity Wednesdays. I have to stop messing with my hair during breaks. We do not have hair and makeup at our show. We are real. We don't have special lights. All right. Well, it's Solidarity Wednesdays, which means Benjamin Dixon from The Benjamin Dixon Show, the host and the executive producer and the president.
It's always good to be here with me on Solidarity Wednesdays.
Thanks for being here. So I was on your show this morning and it was brilliant. And I mean, it is what I love about your show. It sets the intention for the day. It makes, I think what's really powerful about it. I mean, I work out and I do yoga and meditate in the morning because I want to set my intention for the day. And the days when I don't, I sometimes get swept away in the news cycle and start to feel anxiety all day. And what I realized about your show in the morning is that it's political, but you have this way of really keeping the eye on the prize, not making you feel hopeless and frustrated, but okay, we have ways and paths to move forward, and this is how we're going to do it. And that's what I find so beautiful about what you're doing, because it does. It's almost like, your daily political meditation. So,
I just want to say thank you for seeing. It took. David knows it's taken a whole year to really get to, because it's hard to talk about these political issues and not let them bring you down every day, because they are depressing. It is real life for so many people to deal with the issues that we fight with. And so as we found ourselves talking about it every single day for the last, I don't know how many years, I realized we had to take a different approach, because it's not healthy. Nobody wants to get up and just be furious in the morning. Like you said, you have to set your intention for the day. And we set our intention on being as informative as you can, but also making it worthwhile getting up and having some fun.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It's fun too. But part of this is we live in the news cycle, and the algorithms feed off just news in general feeds off this. If it bleeds, it reads, right?
Yeah.
You gotta throw a little Kardashian in with your meteor stuff. But we just had a conversation with David Dayen, who I know you know.
Yeah.
And David, what I was left from that conversation was that there are paths for us right now in government to make change that are not the obvious paths. Yes, cinema and Manchin, which we will talk about, are frustrating, and they're holding things up. The parliamentarian is frustrating, but there are other paths. Whether it's the administration and Chuck Schumer pressuring them from different angles that they might respond to, that may not just be primarying them, but maybe investigations, taking them off of committees, et cetera, et cetera. Ethics investigations. There's all different ways. Or what David was saying is there's a lot of things that the administration and different bureaus and in the administration can do with literally no effort, either just by saying we're going to look into this, like the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, as he mentioned, can look into credit card fees for overdrafting your credit card. Just them saying that and naming which banks, the banks change their policies.
That's right.
So for in an election year, right, where it's not looking great as of now, but if the administration were to cancel student debt or talk about the pathway to canceling student debt, do you think that would be enough for them to win or to get the movement behind them?
I'm afraid to give them that idea, because what they've been masters of, the Democratic Party, has been saying all the right things until they actually get power and then doing nothing with it. But if you're going to cancel student debts, you're going to win in 2022. There's just really no question. It's not an issue for every single American, but it is an issue for enough Americans that I think we're approaching $2.5 trillion of student loan debt. It affects every demographic. It may not affect the entire Black community, but it affects a huge part of the Black community. It affects Black women, it affects Black men, it affects every single one of us. So yes, he can win if he cancels student debt. Here's what he's not going to tell you. No one is going to tell you. The grim reality is that there are people who make contributions to Democrats as well, who make their profits off of student debt.
Right. And
or at least the entire institution, the structure of it. There's money being made off of this.
Mm-hmm. And this is federal debt. It's not like the private debt's not going to be eliminated. It's the federal debt that would be eliminated. On that note, I want to talk a little bit about, we were going to talk about this morning, Matt Gaetz and Roger Stone. I know this sounds, yes, it's really fun to talk about these head cases, but they're also extremely dangerous. And that's why I wanted to talk about it with you, because we talked about propaganda at the beginning and how propaganda, the big lie, whether it's about the vaccines, whether it's about anything that Donald Trump ever said, the elections, these merchants now of lies have hijacked our democracy.
Yeah.
In a sense that Roger Stone used to be sort of like this kooky outsider. Yes, he worked for Nixon. Yes, but in New York politics, he was the one who ran, the former, I think she was a stripper, if I'm correct, on a marijuana line. Like that was his path in politics in New York, was like a little kooky, got involved in some threesomes, like strange stories. Seriously, you can look it up. But this is a person, even though he supposedly is on the outs of the Trump world, he doesn't go away. People want his tactics. He's known for dirty tactics that work. And I'm betting you that the Koch brothers know some of these tactics. I bet you his other clients know. And of course, Matt Gaetz. So can we put that one thing up about Matt Gaetz? Is that possible?
Oh, yeah, that was brilliant.
I don't have it. And I apologize. I don't have the rundown, David. So it's like. All right. I can't see it. All right. Can you zoom in a little bit? So Roger Stone, who's like the scum of the earth, right? Even he says he drafted Matt Gaetz, is turning away from Matt Gaetz, who's under multiple investigations for all sorts of dodgy things. I find this fascinating because, Florida is so important, and DeSantis is probably, trying to build his coalition. Is there something, let's think three-dimensionally here for a second. Roger Stone doesn't go after people unless there's some sort of big reason. What do you think is happening here?
I do. I kind of get the feeling that there's a legitimate multi-front civil war happening in the Republican Party. And I think Roger Stone is, he's coming out to do the bidding of whoever. I don't think he has any real belief system. I think he does. He believes in who's ever going to write him the biggest check. That said, I do believe that there is a civil war happening in the Republican Party. One thing I have to give them, though, they are very careful about what is seen on the outside as opposed to how vicious they are internally. So there is the Matt Gaetz contingency. There is a Ron DeSantis contingency. And I noticed that Roger Stone attacked both of them. And in particular with Ron DeSantis, he attacked him specifically as it pertains to Donald Trump. So my inclination is to think that there's a divide between the Matt Gaetz of the world and the Donald Trumps of the world, because I'm thinking Roger Stone is showing loyalty still to Donald Trump. But it's getting wild over there, to say the least.
It's getting wild over there. Roger Stone claims credit for recruiting Trump, which, in the 80s, they were trying to get him to run for president. And Roger Stone worked for Roy Cohn. Roy Cohn was Donald Trump's father's lawyer. Roy Cohn, of course, was one of the dirtbags of McCarthyist era dirtbags. I'll just say it straight up. One of the lawyers when the blacklist was happening. So this is, we think those tactics went away, but we're just like one generation behind, and they're still around. They're old enough.
That's right.
On that note, though, it's like the same tactics, but they're taking different shapes. You talked about this on your show this morning, that propaganda is propaganda. It's always existed. But, with the algorithm now, propaganda can spread and target and really prey on people in a much faster way. Aaron Rodgers is just another advocate against vaccines. And, I think folks are trying to see, like, obviously how dangerous being anti-vax is. But politically, is this like a new wedge issue? Where do you feel this is going to go?
The vaccine conversation and why so many people, I think in time we're going to see that it was nothing more than profits. Ivermectin was selling out. When hydroxychloroquine, the name was dropped, it was selling out. And even outside of those, those different, snake oil salesman version of a remedy. Outside of that, you still have people who are sandbagging our ability to just live. They're really leading their people to the slaughter. And the only thing that makes sense is that they're doing it because they simply need to buy as much time as they can
That's interesting.
so that the quarterly profit margins continue. This is, I think, late stage capitalism at its greatest example is the number of bodies they're willing to throw on COVID-19 to keep the money coming in.
But things can be true. I feel like it's a hook to bring in new demographics into their let's be real, like their movement is actually dying, like because they're getting older, but also because they're dying because of COVID. But someone like an Aaron Rodgers, who's
that's the weird part.
Football star. I look at him and I'm like, I didn't even know who he was because I don't watch sports. But bringing in different factions, and whether it's Aaron Rodgers or some yoga influencer who's anti-vax, or I'm sure there's many others people could mention. Musician. This is how it's like a campaign through influencing, and the Republican Party, of course, doesn't need large margins to win because they've taken over the entire country. And one election commissioner here, one challenged election there, and a bunch of gerrymandering in state legislatures. Someone like Aaron Rodgers.
That's right. And I'm listening at the influence part of Aaron Rodgers, because I think Aaron Rodgers, for his part, is just a useful idiot. I don't know if he knows or cares to know, but he just feels like he has a cause now. His life has purpose outside of football now. Great job, but you're a useful idiot. And the problem is that the Republican Party is and the conservative movement in general, they're reactionaries more specifically, are masters of co-opting, leveraging, promoting, and getting all the mileage they can out of anyone at the exact moment that it most benefits them. Aaron Rodgers is a godsend for the people who are still raking in money, not only from these snake oil remedies, but also from some treatments. We have politicians with investments in treatment companies. So it's all this one big kabuki theater, and Aaron Rodgers is just playing his dumb role.
Used to get a contract for that, and you could make a few $1 million off of being a spokesperson. How much of a useful idiot is he that he's not even getting paid for this propaganda?
I mean, if you're really through with football, then you could have gone and gotten a check, but you're too dumb to do that, Aaron.
Too many knocks against the head.
Jimmy Dore probably made more money off this grift than Aaron Rodgers did. That's dumb.
Yeah, and on top of it, it probably, if it hasn't already, cost him other deals he could make.
That's
Why?
right.
Because he needs to challenge. What did he say? He says it's not science if you can't question it. Okay, dude. I'm going to listen to a quarterback about science. Thank you so much. Just show me your grades and
more slander against quarterbacks. I love it. more slander against quarterbacks. They're all dumb though. I'm joking.
I don't know anything about. I mean, I grew up in Buffalo, so I can't say things like this because my entire town will turn against me for not knowing enough about sports. And I also don't eat meat, so don't eat beef on whack. Don't eat chicken wings. Not into hockey or football. Like what? Come on, guys. But we are known for politics, so I took that sport. We had Tim Russert. We, a whole lot of Kathy Hochul, of course.
Yeah, I didn't know Tim Russert was from Buffalo. Wow,
lots of folks. Wolf Blitzer, Harvey Weinstein went to school in Buffalo.
Oh, you're not doing too well. It's going the wrong direction here.
I'm just thinking about this body. There's a lot.
We went around the wrong corner in Buffalo right then. Just
listen, not everybody can be from Atlanta, where it's literally the cool. I mean, Buffalo is cool right now. I will say that it's making a comeback. But Starbucks workers. Let's pivot a little bit. Starbucks workers, India Walton.
That's it. That's exactly. I was just getting ready to say, shout out to all the cities that were abandoned by management, by capital. I think there's a comeback coming.
I think so too. I think so. So what do you see? What do you see is going to happen in terms of comeback in the next?
Well, I mean, honestly, just be honest. Like the towns that are depressed, the Rust Belt, the cities that were abandoned, the properties are getting extremely cheap now. I think people need to get out of some of these cities and go to some of these cities that were abandoned, and you can find a way to live. It's like the Great Migration in reverse, right? A lot of the cities have not been good to any of us, especially Black people. So when I see cities that are across the South, there are cities that are completely empty. All right. Across the Rust Belt, there's cities that are completely empty buildings. And I just think a lot more people who are working remotely are going to say, I got to get the hell out of this city that's going to charge me $2,500. I paid $2,500 a month in Boston to live in a hovel. Okay. I'm so
Yeah.
happy to be back in a town where in the South where it's just the price is affordable. So I think a lot of that's going to happen, and I think COVID has something to do with it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we saw a little bit after the first recession in 2009. We saw a little bit of it. I saw some reinvestment in Buffalo. Every time I go back and visit my parents, be like, what is happening on the waterfront here? Like, we've been talking about this stuff for 30 years. When I grew up, I think there was a solid like 4 or 5 miles on the way to school of abandoned factories. I mean, it was just normal in my mind. But now when I think about it, I'm like, it was horrible. It was like,
Not normal.
it,
Yes,
it was like a
exactly.
war-torn town. And it was the norm for me. And so it is, you're seeing some of that. I know like in some of the towns, I just read this in the Buffalo News, just throwing a lot of love to Buffalo right now, that there's a real estate boom because, smaller, younger families can afford to live in Buffalo. So they're moving back home.
That's right.
They can work
And their
remotely, as
jobs
you
are
said.
not predicated on being in Buffalo. Their jobs are literally coming from anywhere now.
That's right. It's fascinating. Well, you heard it first. Ben Dixon, Nostradamus. The Rust Belt's coming back. It's also, my mother told me, my mother was a commissioner of environment in Erie County. She said to me, it's also one of the safest places when it comes to climate change on the planet. But don't tell Elon Musk, because all those billionaires are going to go in there and like.
How so? Help me understand.
Something about the Great Lakes and the freshwater source, and
Oh yeah.
there's like
that's
not really
it.
a fault line. She did this whole thing.
Let's not repeat that on air too many times. No,
Yeah,
really.
exactly.
Mental note.
When I moved to my apartment here, and I live in Astoria, but I just moved apartments, and I'm close to the river, East River, and like the first 3 people I told where I live, they're like, "Oh no, that's not a good place for climate change." I'm like, "Wow, we really have to make our decisions based on this now."
Wow.
And they're right; it's not a good place for climate change. Anyways, Ben, always a pleasure. Love having you on.
It is always a pleasure.
Solidarity Wednesdays. You
Absolutely.
can check out Solidarity Wednesdays on Ben's show, on YouTube, all the other places. We have it all linked in the description, and we'll see you next week.
Absolutely, Nomiki. It's always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. All right, we will be right back with our amazing panel. We have Julia Doubleday and Napoleon the Legend. Be right back. All right, welcome back to the Nomi Key Show. Had to put my glasses on because I've got to look at my screen here. Really exciting stuff here. We have some shout outs. Want to give shout outs to Super Chat members. Dieter McBusiness, thank you so much. YouTube left seems divided on third party thoughts. Ooh, that's a whole conversation. I don't think that we are structurally in a place where we can do it. That's my simple response. We're all divided right now. And third party means you have to get on the ballot in 50 states and you have to have a movement large enough so that you're not actually a spoiler creating opportunities for the right wing. I think it is the right wing's dream right now based on the situation we're in to have a third party. I also don't think that unions will go over to the third party, and we need unions. They're critical for the left. Left is, we have to think of progressive and workers together. I think realistically and structurally, a third party can only amplify maybe a better choice as a progressive nominee for Democrat in primaries. So like if a progressive wins a primary, the third party could potentially give that ballot line and you have 2 ballot lines. That's what it does in New York. It's fusion voting. All right. Great question, though. Could talk a lot more about that. We'll set that as a topic in the future. Oh, my God. Jules T says, have a mojito on me, no Miki. Oh, I will. Desmond. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Desmond, for the love. I know Desmond personally. That's so sweet. Chief Supreme, good show. Thank you. Kayla Sato. Hi, Nomiki. Would love to hear your thoughts on Red Hill with Cara Jabala and the candidate running against Sergio Contreras. That is a great question. We've had Cara on before. We should have her back on. All right. Can we add that to the notes? I will get to that. Jay Ravel, thank you so much. Kayla's back. Yo, the training is free. That's great news. So happy to hear that it cleared the goal. It did. Thank you to everybody who contributed. We hit our goal. We're actually planning on doing maybe 4 trainings this year because of the need. And so we might be coming back with some more information. We're going to see how this one goes at the end of January. But it seems like there's a need based on our conversations. And, we have amazing partners that have joined Matriarch in helping pull this off. Okay. And guys, hey, if you're not already a patron, please join us on patreon.com/The Nomiki Show. This is how we fund an independent media show. We launched right before COVID, as everybody knows, and we don't do the grifty thing in terms of whatever the controversy is of the moment that pulls people in. But that also makes our show, I think, we have a great quality audience, a deep thinking audience, an audience that wants to learn how to activate and organize and thinks globally as well as locally. We have a lot of global conversations on this channel, on this show. We, of course, have the committee program, and we're going to launch another program soon, Solidarity Wednesdays. This is all doable because of our patrons. And you can join us on patreon.com/The Nomiki Show. If you can't afford to be a patron, or you were in the past and you can't come back yet, please message us. Either message us on Patreon exactly right there, or send us a note at thenomikishow@gmail.com, and we will find a way. And if you want to sponsor a patron, that's amazing too. Sometimes these bigger sponsorships cover them. It's a family. We all take care of each other until we have, public media. All right, we'll be right back with Julia Napoleon, the legend. Welcome back to TNS, the Nomiki Show. It's Solidarity Wednesdays. This is the fun little panel-y section. I'm not calling it the fun half. I'm not copying from those guys in Majority Report. We're going to come up with a better term. All right, we have Julia Doubleday. She is the Deputy Director of Committee. She was campaign manager for Julia Oliver's congressional campaign in Texas's 25th district, also Beto O'Rourke's 2018 and Bernie Sanders' 2017 campaigns. And Napoleon the Legend, one of our faves. What's up, Napoleon? Afrobeat hip-hop artist, activist, Brooklyn-based, born? No, not born. I know that. But abroad right now.
Paris born.
Wow. Whoa. I know, he's so fancy. But okay, I gotta say, we have a hip-hop artist here, and I need to go to you for some expertise here. We also have a political strategist here. So these are two worlds that have combined. I want to play this. Beethoven, watch the F out. This is genius. This is pretty much the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Vanilla Ice. Remember Vanilla Ice?
I do, yeah.
Do you actually remember him, or are you just like saying that because you know who he is?
No, I remember Vanilla Ice very well.
Ice
Baby.
Ice
Baby. Yeah.
I forget.
For sure.
He was like in a reality show too recently. The last like 20 years, I'm saying. All right, so Vanilla Ice has teamed up with, I'm not going to say what his background is. I'm going to give you guys a quiz, with a rapper named Forgiato Below. in a new single titled Rodeo, or Rodeo if you're fancy. Let's play this clip.
It's fantasy or is it ecstasy? We throw them pillows and we stain the sheets. And Bronco Billy ain't got nothing on this. Saddle up, baby, give me a kiss. You know it's Friday and I just got paid. Baby, won't you come roll with me? I'ma take you to the rodeo. Show you off at the rodeo. Put your left foot in, take your right foot out. I'ma show you what love's about. I'ma take you to the rodeo.
This, of course, I'm not going to say who it is until I get your opinions on what is happening. Let's start with what's happening musically here, Napoleon. We'll get to the politics at the end.
I mean, musically, it's what happens all the time. It's just they're trying to attach themselves to what they think is cool, and what they think is the style, and just appropriating it, which is it happens all the time with music. I mean, is it high level hip hop music? I don't think so, but at the same time, I don't think they're targeting that crowd either. So as long as they can fool their crowd into thinking like this is what's hip, it could be effective, I guess.
Well,
nice.
It's not new. Like you are being very nice. But like white guys in the South or other places, white guys listen to hip hop music. Are they just like, is this like their CRT? Is this literally like, let's just anti-CRT? Like, let's just erase the history of hip hop and own it because Vanilla Ice invented hip hop.
Well, hip hop is so big right now. I think it's kind of when something is that big, like anybody could like take ownership of it. But it's ironic because at its inception and at its core, hip hop should be against the system and surely anti-white supremacist and all types of things. And they're actually like flipping that on its head and being like, look, this is like ultra nationalist hip hop, white hip hop, which is very ironic. You know what I'm saying?
That's exactly it. I mean, Julia, like, I feel like this is what, and just so folks know, this is a QAnon rapper that Vanilla Ice is teaming up with Forgiato Blow. I don't even know what that, am I saying that right? Is there something I'm missing here? This is a QAnon rapper. So they're like, okay, how can we are losing our demographics. Let's look at every single angle of society that we can potentially tap into to nationalism, economic insecurity, and like pretend that like people of color don't exist. I don't know. I mean, Julia, was this? I'm gonna guess this wasn't like Vanilla Ice's strategy. I think he was just probably paid for it. But what do you think?
Oh, you think he was paid for it? I feel like he had enough success early in his career that for him to be attached to this, like, I'm serious. I feel like it's got to be like a passion project for him. So like my guess would be he's gone full QAnon, right? I mean, unless he's got a lot of unpaid debts piling up from the last few decades. I mean, he's still getting those royalty checks. There's no way.
I think it's both. I think it's him trying to go like the Kid Rock route, where it's like, if you're not hot anymore, and hasn't been hot forever, and he's been the butt of a joke in the hip hop community for a long time. Nobody took him seriously. He was like the first well-known so-called industry plant, where it's like you manufacture somebody in a test tube and you put money behind it and you create a star. And he was outed in the hip hop community. Nobody wanted a part of him,
really?
A piece of him. So I think it's a move where that's the only place left where he could give himself any relevance. And since the QAnon, all that stuff is like popping right now, like there's a crowd for that. I actually think it's a good move for him to be relevant, because he can't do anything else where anybody would take him seriously. That crowd, maybe they will, because that crowd is all about.
So you say
the weird stuff we believe, we could be friends. We like you.
So you say money moves. I say, I don't know. I feel like he could lean into being a conservative white rapper, but QAnon is like a step beyond that, right? Because QAnon is just a conspiracy that is attached to a lot of other conspiracies, and like there's the whole JFK Jr. thing now. Right. I don't know. I kind of feel like maybe he's a true believer now.
Well, this is a QAnon
I guess only
rapper.
time will tell.
So I'm curious if the QAnon rapper raps about conspiracies. I am really into this, and I want to dissect the hell out of it, guys. I'm sorry. Maybe we'll get to
What's
the
happening
important
here?
issues.
That's
This-
Trump. Is this man supposed to be?
This is Roger Stone, and this is
Oh,
a
this is
truck.
Roger Stone.
And
Oh,
then
okay.
the QAnon rapper is there. But I'm curious if the QAnon rapper's raps are about like JFK Jr. is still alive. Like, can you freestyle it right now? Like, if you were going to mock Napoleon, putting him on the spot, freestyle a QAnon rap.
No, because somebody's
I can't
gonna
even play
clip
myself
that.
like
Somebody's
that.
gonna
man,
clip
because
that.
That's gonna turn into a meme. I'm gonna end up regretting
right.
years
Please,
later.
it'll be
No,
so
it's
funny.
just it's look, hip hop is conspiratorial too. Like a lot of like hip hop, they talk about conspiracy theories and things like that. I'm pretty sure this is more like him trying to align with the Alex Jonesy, even Joe Rogan-ish type world, which is smart. You know, it's just this thing to do right now. And like, what else would he be doing? Like, if he just raps like regular raps, nobody would take him seriously anyway. So he might as well. He needs to go where the love is, and he could find his home in that type of niche. I believe. You know what I'm saying?
And
But yeah, they
suck.
probably
Let's just
talk
be
about
real.
all that
They
QAnon
suck.
stuff. They probably talk about whatever Joe Rogan or Alex Jones talks on the show. That could be the subject matter for his raps. The cabal, the pedophiles, and the elite, the drinking babies' blood and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying?
And ivermectin. I'm sure there's a lot of words that rhyme with ivermectin.
Ivermectin. You know what I mean? Damn, that's a good thing to put in a rhyme, actually.
Yeah, I agree.
Wait, can we have the anti-QAnon rappers? Like you have. I mean, you rap about real stuff. You've done your hip hop's beautiful, but like it you know, kind of trolling each other because there's always like these battles in the industry. That would be awesome. Instead of it being about like Pete Davidson and Kim Kardashian and Kanye West, it's about like ivermectin, bro. Really?
but you know, it's kind of funny because Kanye West has became like very conservative lately, which is a shock and a disappointment to a lot of people in the hip hop community. You know what I'm saying? But it's a weird world to be in. I just Vanilla Ice has almost always been a joke, and you know he's not disappointing. He's still not disappointing on that level. You know what I mean?
Let's be real. Famous musicians are people too, and they're just as susceptible to predatory political acts as anybody else. Hence Kanye West or others. Before we get
Have
out
you
of
seen
this,
what Eric Clapton's been doing?
Oh
Like,
yeah.
George
he
Harrison
went
is
that route
losing
too.
his mind in another realm.
George Harrison?
They used to be best friends. George Harrison was like, you know.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But believe it or not, like Eric Adams.
New York Mayor Eric Adams. New York Mayor Eric Clapton.
I was so sad because Eric Clapton, I guess, has been this way for a long time. We just didn't notice.
Yeah, there was a bunch of stuff that leaked, or not leaked, I guess, but when people said crazy offensive shit before the internet, like it didn't roll around as much, I guess, as it does now. And like people were retweeting all this stuff that he said at some concert in like the 70s, 80s about how all the immigrants need to get out of the UK, like super racist stuff. I mean, like literally it was like, who here is an immigrant? Like, get out of my show. And this was like in the 80s.
Oh my God. He actually said that?
Oh yeah. No, you can look it up. It's crazy. Crazy shit.
Oh my God.
He said they're like ruining the UK and they're ruining the culture and all this stuff. So apparently he's been like this.
So I'm trying to find this and I can't find it. But James O'Keefe from Project Veritas, a few weeks ago, he went to a rally in Arizona. It was this like far right rally. I don't know. I forgot what it was called. Like America, like win America, bring back America. Like America's the best except for you people. He did a rap on stage too. So I think this Talking Points USA. Thank you. I think this might be a new trend where they're like, we're going to get the kids this way, guys. And by kids, we mean the little Nazis. That's it. All right. So let's.
I mean, it's smart. I mean, kids love hip hop. You know what I mean? Like, so they have to do something that's perceived cool and to get to that. So I get it. And hip hop is very accessible.
Wait for the reggaeton. When James O'Keefe, when Ben Shapiro starts doing reggaeton on stage.
Oh man.
I'm sorry. I mean, this is ridiculous. All right, thanks to the Humanist Report for finding that one. Let's get to real issues here, like filibuster reform, which is being voted on right now. And by the time you watch this, we're going to have a vote done. But I want to play a few clips on filibuster reform. The first one from MSNBC. Nancy Pelosi, Bernie Sanders, Kamala Harris, and President Biden all respond to Manchin and Sinema preventing filibuster reform. Let's play this clip.
So I asked our colleagues in the Senate respectfully for what they think filibuster means, to compare that, to weigh the equities against our democracy, because nothing less is at stake than our democracy. If you really, truly want to honor Dr. King, don't dishonor him by using a congressional custom as an excuse for protecting our democracy.
Senator Bernie Sanders tweeted directly at the two moderate Democrats holding up the legislation, writing in part, quote, "Will 50 Democrats vote to override the filibuster, protect American democracy, and pass the bill? Or will Manchin and Sinema vote with the GOP and let the bill die?" The White House didn't spare the senators either. When asked about Manchin and Sinema, Vice President Harris had this to say.
As I've said before, there are 100 members of the United States Senate, and I'm not going to absolve, nor should any of us, absolve any member of the United States Senate from taking on a responsibility to follow through on the oath that they all took to support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
And in his address at the National Action Network, President Biden evoked the legacy of Dr. King.
It's no longer just about who gets to vote. It's about who gets to count the vote and whether your vote counts at all. It's about two insidious things: voter suppression and election subversion. In his time, through his courage, his conviction, and his commitment, Dr. King held a mirror up to America and forced us to answer the question, where do we stand? Whose side are we on? We're in another moment right now where the mirror is being held up to America, being held up again. The question being asked again, where do we stand?
Right. So I want to also just, because there's a series of reactions from the media that I think are really important. I kind of want to play them back to back if you guys are cool with holding and then commenting. So this is part of, I think, the growing escalation. And let's just remind folks while we're loading the next clip that the Biden administration has been having major friction with the Manchin office. Like their people, Ron Klain hadn't talked to them in a while. Like it had right before New Year's, it got toxic. And as much as I personally don't feel like Biden's doing enough and there's other things he could do to move them, it's not like it's some game and dance between them. There are a lot of reports about how they're not getting along. Let's play the second clip from CNN, because CNN seems to be, I'm like, what is going on? Alternate universe. Suddenly the mainstream's sometimes siding with progressives. Let's play this.
Abby, are we seeing any dissatisfied progressives or even moderates start to pull away a bit from the president, considering the legislative narrative and those polling numbers?
Well, I mean, 2 data points. You've got 2 very powerful, it seems, moderates in the Senate who are not going out of their way to make their president look good. They have done some things in the last week, whether it was Kyrsten Sinema going to the Senate floor just before Joe Biden showed up in the Senate to essentially embarrass him. So that's one data point on the moderates. I think there's a sense there that Joe Biden doesn't have any political sway over them. And when it comes to liberals, there is a dissatisfaction here. Many of these progressives held their nose and voted for Joe Biden, even though they did not believe that he was progressive enough. And now they want to see receipts. They want to see results. And there has been less progress on some of the things that they really care about. How the White House manages that dissatisfaction is going to be the most important question of this year.
Okay.
Midterms are for the base.
Okay, so this is extraordinary that CNN's even recognizing this, that no, like you want to go back to blaming the progressives? How about you look at the 2 people holding up government, right, and voting rights? But I might be wrong, but I feel like it started to move in the press once voting rights was pushed by groups, faith-based groups, communities of color, or groups in terms of organizing communities of color. Like that's when they started to realize this is not just some sort of like schemy thing, the progressives wanting everything. Am I wrong? Do you feel like this is what I don't know if it's going to move them in the end, but it's embarrassing, no? Julia, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure they have the capacity to be embarrassed. One thing that we've been told over and over again is that a progressive like Bernie can't be an effective president because he can't work with the other side of the aisle and he can't bring people over to his opinion. Whereas someone like Biden is moderate, so he can do a good job of bringing all of the different opinions to the table and finding a good compromise. I think what we're seeing now is that the reality is there is no compromise between the interests of capital and the interests of the public. There is no compromise. There's never been a compromise. You either protect the interests of people or you protect the interests of corporate actors who want to oppress and exploit people. When two interests are in conflict, direct conflict like that, you can't represent both. So you can't represent oil companies and people who are having their land stolen by oil companies. You can't represent big pharma and represent people with children who have diabetes. Like you cannot possibly bring both of those actors to the table and come up with a compromise, because the rich and powerful actors who continually send their own people into our government, they have no interest in compromising, and they never have. So it's always been a lie that everything is about coming to the table and having this great conversation, right? It's a sort of like West Wing take on what our democracy is and how it functions. Is this idea that we all get together in a room and we have this stirring intellectual debate, and then at the end of the day, the best ideas win. That makes no sense, because the people who end up in office are the people who have the most high dollar donors and the most high dollar contributors. So at the end of the day, the issue here is that we already don't have democracy. You know, everything we're talking about now is we need to defend our democracy. We need to defend our democracy. What democracy? If we had a democracy, people like Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin wouldn't be there in the first place to hold up progress that everyone across the country, a vast majority of people, want and support. So, I mean, it's all sort of a big distraction, this idea that like, it's just the opinion of one person. It's the opinion of two people that are keeping us from progress. But it's not really their opinions. They're sent there for a reason. And it is specifically not to ever compromise and not to ever fall in line with any sort of progressive priority.
And of course, Chuck Schumer knows that. Chuck Schumer recruited Sinema to run. I mean, there were many other people, at least in Congress, when she ran in Congress, there were other viable candidates, very well-known candidates in the district. It was a very competitive race for Congress. And of course, she was chosen to run against Martha McSally. I mean, is that what it really is? Are they just, do you feel like that's the case, Napoleon, that they're just there to kind of block no matter what, and if they're not there, somebody else will?
Yeah, I do. I mean, they're hired guns. They're the people that are put in that position, and they're executing whatever they're put there to execute. But it's true what Julia said, because like the veil is off now. It's like everybody is seeing like this is not a democracy. This is a game. We've been talking about these two people for how long now, and it's like it's not. That shouldn't be the case for a proper functioning system. And the fact that we're just rehashing the same story over and over and over again, it's time for people to really expose like the system for what it is, and the malfunction of the system for what it is. So hopefully there could be some sort of pressure being made that like we don't want the country to run like this. Like this is what we're supposed to be.
This is a good point, because on The View, you know, The View is not necessarily known for its like in-depth political analysis, a lot of complaining and stuff, but they seem to be seeing stuff that they at least were not expressing to have known before. There's this clip where they're talking about the interests of the Manchin family. Let's play that clip.
So hours from now, the Senate will begin the votes on the Voting Rights Reform Bill, which hinges on challenging filibuster rules, something that Democratic Senators Sinema and Manchin still say they oppose. So some Democrats say, well, you may oppose it, but we are going to primary you behind in 2024 if they prevent this bill from passing. But Manchin seems unfazed. Take a look.
I've been primaried my entire life. That would not mean anything new for me. I've never run an election. I wasn't primaried. This is West Virginia. It's rough and tumble. We're used to that. So bring it on.
Yes, well, it's never been quite as rough and tumble as this, because you see, when you say to poor people, and basically that's what you're doing, we don't care how you vote, you'll vote how I tell you to vote. Poor people don't like that. They don't like it. And so you might have been set before and you could do rough and tumble. Let's see how rough and tumble you actually are. How do you see this playing
out. It's fascinating that Bernie Sanders considers them Democrats, because I don't.
Yeah.
You know, but I was just saying before to you that I think that Manchin has shown some of his cards that we didn't see before, sort of what you were just sort of saying, that we now know that he's in bed with the coal industry and the fossil fuel industry, that his daughter, this is an interesting point, his daughter was a CEO of the pharmaceutical company that was caught gouging the price of EpiPens a few years ago and making big donations to his campaign at the same time. This is a guy who basically doesn't want the poor people in his state to have a child tax credit because he thinks they will use the money for drugs. And he doesn't want paid sick leave because it might encourage people to lie so they can go on hunting trips. Why are the West Virginians
putting up with this?
Why will they put up with this man who doesn't give a hoot about them, the environment, or the Democratic Party, or the country at this point?
Let's pause it for a second.
Answer me that question.
Let's, because they continue, and I think this is wonderful, but ultimately they're asking the question that I think we've been asking for years. But does it matter what West Virginians think? Does he really care? I mean, he could flip to Republican tomorrow and still win. I mean, turnout's incredibly low. I mean, this is one of the flaws, as Julia said, like our democracy is not functioning for a lot of reasons. Money and interests, he can get away with this, but also we don't have, I mean, I guess that's why some people are focusing on voting rights. It's important. I'm not saying that's not important, but turnout's so low. Incumbents win like 95% of the time, whatever it is. Julia, do you think there's any sort of anything that being primaried do you think he cares about being in office? Or is he
I don't think he cares about being primaried because he is used to how the system has typically worked over the last few decades, and he has a certain arrogance about his position. So the reality is, it is true that the person with more money wins in like 90% of races. So in that sense, we have to say, okay, that's not really how a functioning democracy would work. But I do think in recent years, we've seen this sort of burgeoning wave of progressives who have been able to unseat people very much against the odds. So one thing that I've been saying, to you and to others recently is that I do think a major advantage that progressive players have is the sort of arrogance of the incumbent Democrats and of the Democratic establishment. So there is this sense of like, this has always worked, so it's always going to work. If you talk to consultants, they're going to show you what happened in 2020 and 2018 and 2016. They're going to look at what happened in previous races and try to bring that forward. And the reality is something that worked to win a race in 1996 is not going to necessarily work to win a race in 2022. So that's both a major hindrance for the Democratic Party itself and for maintaining power, but it's also an advantage for new players who want to get in the game and want to unseat people. AOC was this big, shockwave of like, oh my gosh, how could this young bartender defeat the old establishment who had a fuck ton of money, very heavily favored to win? How could this happen? The reality is the Democrats didn't ever take that as a reality check. They never said, you know what, we got to tighten up here because actually it doesn't really make sense for our very well-known, very prominent, very wealthy candidate to have lost to this woman. Instead, in order to preserve their own sense of self and their sense that they're doing a good job, they told themselves it was a complete fluke and it would never happen again. This is an advantage for us. It's an advantage that they're so arrogant that they can't see what's going to happen next, even though it's quite obvious that the progressives have been gaining ground and gaining ground and gaining ground for the last 4 years, and I think are going to continue doing that. What we're seeing now is a complete failure on every level of government for the moderate Dems to deliver on anything they promised us. We know that Kamala Harris said, I think that in the pandemic, people should be getting $2,000 a month. People should be getting $2,000 a month during the pandemic. That means she thinks that every working class family in America should be getting a check for $40,000. And instead, what are they getting? 4 rapid tests in the mail 6 weeks into the worst wave of the pandemic yet. The arrogance and the sense of just that they can't be touched, it completely permeates the Democratic establishment. And it's also why I think we have to be extremely worried about a Trump run in 2024. If that man is not dead in 2024, I guarantee you he's going to get reelected.
And that's fair enough. But I will say one thing that I think the centrists, do we think that the centrists, yes, okay, they have not changed their tactics. But what I find interesting about this moment, and Napoleon, like, I don't know if maybe this is just my magical thinking here, but it's interesting that you see groups that are normally aligned with the Democratic establishment turning on Manchin and Sinema, which makes me feel like it may not be a progressive that runs to the left of them. People are talking about Ruben Gallego in Arizona running to the left of Kyrsten Sinema, and full disclosure, I know him very well. I've known him since I was like 19 or something, but he's not a progressive. He supported Biden. He's been backed by AIPAC, but like people are starting to think, oh, wouldn't it be great if all the progressives are like Ruben Gallego? I'm like, 2 minutes of Googling, please. And same thing with Manchin. It's almost like a controlled I mean, they've gone so far that I don't know. I mean, what do you think? Like, this is it's kabuki theater, and I'm so frustrated.
I mean, well, the first thought I have, is like, why is the View having a better like political like breakdown about this thing than like you'll see on MSNBC or CNN or something like that? It's like I wish they would call Manchin out just the same way that they did when it came to his daughter and everything else in Sinema. It seems like moderates are so and centrists are so confident that they have the channels to the money that they like you said, it creates some sort of arrogance with them. But my question is like eventually this has to collapse one way or the other because people are seeing through it. But when is the actual like $1 million question? Like how long could they keep this racket going? And I think that it is an opportunity for progressives to really go hard and like, you know, Mika, you try to promote local races and things like that and really start putting pressure because people are gonna, these moderates that are smart, they're gonna start running, like you said, kind of to the left and play on that and then get into the offices and just play business as usual, which is what has been the problem lately and why Democrats are like gonna be so unpopular going forward.
It's, I mean, the interesting thing here is they don't need to be as obstructionist as Manchin and Sinema. They just need to be in line with the Democratic Party where they've been. Problem is the stakes are too high, especially if Trump does run again if he's alive. And we covered this on the show earlier today is, DeSantis, like Trump's been going after DeSantis and now Trump's people, Roger Stone is like going after Matt Gaetz, even though he recruited him supposedly. So they're trying to crush their opposition. I wouldn't say it's an inter-party fight. I think they're just trying to crush their opposition so he can consolidate power. Last night, Trump, there was a Trump family, there was a rally, whatever you want to know. What do we say? Let's put this Twitter up. Going after, of course, Tish James. Tish James has been investigating and has the news today is that they did not disclose, the Trump family did not disclose their finances appropriately. And like basically that's fraud. You can't, if you're being investigated, let alone to your taxes, you have to show where your income's coming from. And so Tish James, Letitia James says, we're taking legal action to force Donald Trump Jr. and Ivanka Trump to comply with our investigation into the Trump Organization's financial dealings. No one in this country can pick and choose if and how the law applies to them. And of course, the Trumps are saying this is political. It's like, yeah, welcome to politics. You're taking money from who knows what foreign, countries is also politics. Like, I'm so sick of this term. Oh, it's politics. Stop playing politics. Politics is people. Get over it. Let's close on Trump. Like, where do we think this is going?
Nowhere.
Nowhere? Really? You think the AG is not going to go anywhere?
I think that the AG will do what the AG can do, but I think that she herself said, no one gets to pick and choose if they obey laws in this country. I don't agree. I think that the Trumps have been picking and choosing which laws they, are going to comply with. Throughout the history of the Trump empire. So, I mean, Trump has done a lot of illegal things. We all know that. It didn't stop him from winning. He famously said, I could shoot someone in the middle of Fifth Avenue and my supporters would still support me. That's still true.
He
has
shot the
two,
entire island of Puerto Rico, and his supporters.
Yeah, the Republican Party has too much riding on this man to watch him go down, and I just don't think I don't think ultimately it will lead to anything. Do I think there will be a lot of sound and fury? Do I think this is something that the resistance libs are going to like keep chatting about and latch onto? Sure. But do I think that he's not going to be on the ballot in 2024? I put money on it. He'll be on the ballot unless he's dead.
My thought is, I think, we have to think multidimensionally about the Republicans too. I do think that there are Republicans who are national security Republicans, and if anything is exposed in these financial dealings that shows, and I'm pretty much 100% sure that this is what's happening, that there are foreign interests and oligarchs putting money illegally and who's hiding it, that could be a problem. I don't think national security Republicans and Democrats, the deep state, whatever they want to effing call it, would stand for that. I could be, I don't know. What do you think,
Napoleon? I think there are elements.
Lincoln Project Republicans, like those types.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we don't like them, but at least like
they're a little club. They're a little club. Yeah.
Everybody, we all want the Trumps to be held accountable. Like, I believe it when I see it. Like, I hope it happens, but it's like I said, I'm not gonna hold my breath, because we've seen, we've been disappointed before, when it comes to things like this. But obviously, we want corruption to be rooted out. We would hope so.
We've been burnt by the American justice system before. Yeah.
Breaking news.
Not a big.
You heard it here first.
Yeah.
And by the time you hear this, I'm going to guess our filibuster vote is not going to be successful. Just gonna, my hunches.
The other thing is this filibuster vote, it's just very conveniently timed, whereas we've been pushing for this since Biden got into office, and they haven't put any weight behind it until suddenly during this major wave of the pandemic, where they're trying to distract from it in any way they possibly can. There's this massive speech. They just have all of the TV networks talking about this speech, even though the fundamentals of the situation haven't changed and they know it has no chance to pass. So in my mind, it's a distraction. Yeah, they're forcing the vote, which they know it's not effective.
A distraction.
The thing is, like, if Trump would have been in Biden's position right now, he would be calling Sinema and Manchin out by their names and really going hard against them. Just like the same way Trump talks about anybody like who disappointed him, who went against him. And I think Biden should go that route. Stop that whole diplomatic, polite stuff, the back channeling. Like, make it public. Just tell everybody how you feel, and throw some shots out there, and at least just shaking things up, and at least people will feel like you're trying to do something and you're being combative. But all this like, oh, we're working behind the scenes and all that, like that's not communicate anything to people.
And you know what? I mean, even this is gonna be a little controversial. I love Bernie, but I feel like we love Bernie because he challenges the establishment. And saying you're going to back a primary, I don't think that, like we said, what's moving them. And frankly, someone should primary this guy, Chuck Schumer. I mean, come on now, let's be real. Like, Chuck Schumer, you think if he wants to stay in leadership, which I am not sure he does, because he will lose leadership if this goes on, unless they have some sort of, hat trick right before the election, where they're going to like cancel student debt or something. He's not going to be in leadership any longer. So I don't get it. Primary him. Let's do it. All right. I'm all about going after Nazis and these guys. Everybody, we love you. And by everybody, I mean David behind the scenes, Julia, Doubleday, and of course, Napoleon the Legend. You're the best. So appreciative. Stay in solidarity, as always. And Napoleon, next time you're on, I'm really looking forward to hearing your battle, your rap battle with oh my God. What if we invite him on the show and we did like Vanilla Ice and Napoleon? Like,
I don't think that would be a good look for me.
No,
it might be though.
Sure.
People might be like, you crushed him and like you get they'll have you on the View.
You don't get points by crushing Vanilla Ice though. That's the thing. That's the thing. You do not get points. Unfortunately, it would be too easy.
What if you looped in Kanye? Because Kanye gets triggered by anything. Like, you got
Kanye would be somebody. Bring Kanye up on your show.
Okay. Well, I don't know if I'm going to get Kanye on the show, but you start like you bring in Vanilla Ice, and then you loop in Kanye in your rap, and then Kanye gets triggered because he's triggered by everything, and then Davidson responds.
I've said a few lines about Kanye's in my raps before. I said something about, like just I used to be a fan, and it's disappointed to see him rocking a MAGA hat, something like that. I forgot the line I said, but I've said lines. But the thing is, at the same time, I like Kanye as an artist. You know what I'm saying?
As a musician,
hard,
I'm a big Kanye fan. I think he's just lost it a little, or a lot.
Yeah,
lost it.
No, he totally lost it.
Do.
Yeah.
I used to be a big fan of Kanye, him coming up. I remember like when he was just on the come up at Howard University on stage, killing it. I was in DC watching it. I was at his album release party for his first album, but he just took a turn for, I don't know what happened to him, but he's still Kanye.
Kardashians.
No, I think I don't want to blame the Kardashians. It's ego, right? So ego. I mean, look what he's doing with Kim right now. Like, talk about abusive. This is not like gossip. It's like weird, toxic male, obsessiveness over her. And
for sure.
Meanwhile, he's being
like
investigated
a straight stalker. Like he's talking like
he's
talking crazy. Like he put out a song with Game talking about beating up Pete Davidson and going together to their divorce hearing or something. He's saying some crazy stuff right now. But that's how he entertains people too. He's a professional. He's been a professional troll too. At the same time,
we'll be back on Friday for Fun Friday. Stay in solidarity.
The No Miki Show. Clash momentarily for class solidarity. Cash circulating, give the masses back its currency. Greed from elites, oligarchs stay fed. Deep state, faith fed. Everybody break bread. Racism, homophobia, sexism, religion in this melting pot we live in. Time to build a new system. Unionize labor rights. Highlight the issue. Talking heads left is best. The saga continues. The No Miki Show.